Chapter 261, Severing Family Ties 3. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked and looked at Father Li in disbelief. Li Chenmo lowered his head and frowned deeply. Seeing her husband's expression, Lu Jiu took his hand and squeezed it gently. Feeling his wife's soft hands, Li Chenmo raised his head to look at his wife and smiled. He squeezed her hand and nodded to her. Seeing that he was fine, Lu Jiu breathed a sigh of relief. Even in modern times, severing family ties is not a trivial matter, especially in this period when people still adhere to traditional concepts. After a while, an elder in the family finally asked, "Third nephew, what's going on? This is not a trivial matter, and you can't make a rash decision." "That's right, third brother. Maybe there is some misunderstanding between you and Chengshuan. There is no overnight grudge between father and son. Let's calm down your anger first before making a decision." The eldest uncle tried to persuade Father Li. Father Li closed his eyes, with a look of pain on his face. Although Li Chengshuan was unfilial and often made trouble outside, he was still his son and he had raised him since he was born. Father Li never expected that his second son would say those hurtful words coldly. When he left, there was not even a trace of hesitation. 30 years, I have protected him for 30 years. Over the years, I have tried to correct his outlook on life, but to no avail. It's time for me to grant his wish and let him go. Despite the pain in his heart, Father Li took a deep breath and said firmly, "Uncle, brother, I have decided." Everyone sighed because they knew that once Father Li made a decision, no matter what they said, he would not change it. "In that case, I will do as you wish." The granduncle took out the Li family genealogy, red ink, and a brush from the box. He put the old book on the table and found Li Chengshuan's name. After he dipped his brush in red ink, he said, "From today on, Li Chengshuan will no longer be remembered as a descendant of our Li family. No matter what happens in the future, we have nothing to do with him." As soon as he finished speaking, the granduncle crossed out Li Chengshuan's name on the book with red ink. Seeing the red ink on his second son's name, Father Li's eyes turned red, and a tear fell from the corner of his eye. Since Li Chengshuan has been expelled from the family, it stands to reason that Zhao Siyu has also been expelled from the family, but she has passed away and was buried with the Li family ancestors. After some discussion, they decided not to cross her name off the family genealogy. Lu Jiu looked at the book with mixed emotions. With one stroke of red ink, the family relationship was cut off. All the emotions, sacrifices, and efforts that Father Li and Mother Li put in for Li Chengshuan were all gone in an instant. After the matter was resolved, Li Chen's and Li Chenmo sent away their relatives, while Zhang Dongmei and Lu Jiu helped Father Li go to his room. After everyone had dispersed, the 4 educated youths finally dared to open the bedroom door and walk out. They stood in the living room, looking at Father Li's room with pity. Compared with other parents, Father Li could be counted as a good parent. No matter how bad his children were, he would support and protect them. He tries his best to raise them into a good person. Unfortunately, no one is perfect, and so is Father Li. His excessive pampering made Li Chengshuan unreasonable and selfish, and his harsh education methods made him grow into a person with a twisted personality and someone with a petty, jealous heart. In the bedroom, after helping Father Li lie down, Zhang Dongmei went to boil water for Father Li, while Lu Jiu accompanied him. Seeing Father Li closing his eyes, Lu Jiu took out the envelope from the space and said, "Father, I don't know if you lost this." Father Li opened his eyes, looked at the envelope and shook his head. "That's not mine." "Oh." Lu Jiu waited for Zhang Dongmei to come back and asked her about the envelope. After Zhang Dongmei saw the envelope, she shook her head and said, "It's not mine. Third sister-in-law, where did you find it?" Lu Jiu glanced at Father Li and said, "I found it at Li Chengshuan's house." Lu Jiu's heart was heavy when she saw that Father Li didn't say anything when she didn't call Li Chengshuan as a second brother, but she didn't show any expression. It seemed that Father Li had really given up on him. Maybe that would be a good thing for both of them. Seeing the sky getting dark, Lu Jiu said, "Father, my husband and I think it would be better to postpone this meal until tomorrow. What do you think about this?" After a while, Father Li finally said, "Just do as you suggest." "All right, we will notify the villagers. Father, it's time for you to rest. We will take our leave first." After Zhang Dongmei finished speaking, she left the room, followed by Lu Jiu. Be careful on the road," Father Li said tiredly. Closing the door, they saw their husbands waiting for them. After leaving Father Li's house, Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu went to notify the villagers, while Li Chen's and Zhang Dongmei went to Li Chengshuan's house to clean up the mess. When they got home, the moon had risen. Lu Jiu felt tired and didn't want to move, so she took her husband into her own space. After a hot bath, they lay on her soft bed. Since she planned to wake up naturally, Lu Jiu did not set an alarm clock and fell asleep in her husband's arms. When Lu Jiu woke up, it was already 10 hours later. Due to the time difference between her space and the outside, only 10 minutes passed outside. Seeing that her husband was still sleeping, she took the two of them out of their space. They appeared on the Kang bed and continued to sleep, only to wake up when the rooster crowed. When she opened her eyes, she found that her husband was still asleep. Looking at the blue patches under his eyes, she felt heartbroken for her husband. As she kissed her husband's chin, she felt the stubble lightly brush against her lips, tickling her. Looking at his face, she felt a sweet satisfaction that made her very happy. The satisfaction made her realize that she was in love with him. She stroked his face and whispered, "Good morning, husband." After kissing her husband again, Lu Jiu braided her hair and walked to the backyard. After washing her face, she lit a fire and boiled a pot of water. While she was waiting for the water to boil, she went to check on the old hen. As usual, the old hen laid 5 eggs. She picked up the eggs, filled the feeders and water bowl, touched the old hen's head and said, "Comrade, thank you for your hard work." The old hen seemed to understand her words, crowed softly, closed her eyes and rested. Afterward, she went to water the vegetable garden and peach tree. The vegetables are thriving thanks to the water and fertilizer from her space. Based on the growth rate, she may be able to pick some vegetables in early summer. While Lu Jiu was working, she was thinking about taking wedding photos with her husband and sighed. Due to an unexpected situation at home, their plan to take wedding photos seems to have to be postponed. Today is their last rest day before they start planting the fields, and they have postponed the meal to thank the villagers for their help yesterday. They must be invited today, otherwise, it may bring bad luck to them. Although no one would say anything if it were delayed for another day, some villagers still believed in the superstition. Therefore, it is better to have the meal today. After watering the vegetable garden, Lu Jiu prepared the pig feed and went to the kitchen to pour boiling water into the drinking water vat to cool down. For breakfast today, she prepared dumpling soup, brown bread, which is also known as whole wheat bread, strawberry kiwi jam, fried eggs, warm soy milk, and orange juice. Since she would have lunch with the villagers later, she only prepared a simple breakfast. At this time, Li Chenmo was frowning as he was dreaming. This dream was actually all the memory fragments that appeared from time to time in his previous dreams. He looked at what he saw in shock. In the past, every time he dreamed of this tall man, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't see his face. But this time he saw him clearly. When the man turned around, he saw a face that looked exactly like his own. The man looked at him with a reluctant yet relieved smile on his face and said, "It's time for you to wake up. Never lose her again." As soon as he finished speaking, the white room around him turned into a hospital. Everything begins from the moment a man is born into a wealthy and prominent family in the modern era. When he was 3 years old, his family discovered that he was a genius with a high IQ and strong physical strength. Because of this, he was groomed to be the next head of the family. Due to the intensive training he received since childhood, he grew into an indifferent and ruthless person. He doesn't even have any affection for his parents, not to mention others. His life is cold and dark until one day, he is involved in a car accident under the arrangement of his uncle who wants to kill him and become the head of the family. When he thought that he would die, a young girl rushed to the overturned car, broke the window with a rock, and pulled him out regardless of the danger. Not long after she pulled him out of the car exploded. She blocked him with her body and seriously injured herself. By the time they were taken to the hospital, he was on the verge of fainting. He saw that the girl was unconscious, with burns on her back and injuries all over her body. The blood stained her junior high school uniform crimson and dripped onto the floor. He spent 2 months in the hospital due to his injuries. He looked everywhere for her, but without any information about her, he couldn't find her. Until one day, he went to University B as a seminar lecturer. When he stood on the stage, he saw her immediately amidst the crowd. She is the only light in his life, so how could he forget her and have not seen her? Her presence brings color and warmth to his cold and dark life. Just like a dying person looking for a lifeline, he anxiously went to her after he finished the lecture, only to see her leaving with a young and handsome man. Looking at that scene, Li Chenmo felt as if a dull knife was digging a hole in his heart, and the pain was unbearable. He clenched his fists, trying to resist the urge to kill the man. At this moment, he finally understood that this tall man was actually himself. Everything he saw in this dream was the memory of his previous life. He watched as he tried every means to get close to her and finally got her love. Unfortunately, she and her family suffered a lot due to his family's objection. From kidnappings and threats to the downfall of her stepfather's company, his family has done it all. Finally, they used her mother to force her to leave him. In order to save her mother's life, she signed an agreement with his grandfather and never appeared in front of him again. By the time he found out about it, she had left. This separation lasted for many years. The next time he saw her was on the plane flying to her hometown. When he saw her, he almost cried because of his uncontrollable emotions. Happiness, remorse, relief, guilt, longing, and especially love surged in his heart. Although he wanted to rush to her and ask for her forgiveness, he did not dare to approach her for fear that she would reject him. He couldn't stand her leaving him again, nor could he listen to her words of rejection, blame, or hatred. In order to be closer to her, he changed seats with another passenger. When a plane hits a flock of birds, he knows their chances of survival are next to zero. His life was hers, so he had to use his life to protect her. Therefore, he rushed to her and hugged her tightly. Before the plane crashed, he whispered in a trembling voice, "Yua, I'm sorry for everything. No matter where you are, I will find you. I love you." From his voice, Lee Chenmo could hear reluctance, regret, fear, love, guilt, vows, and pleading. Yan begged the love of his life to wait for him to come to her. He also vowed to find her and protect her with his own life. When the plane crashed, Lee Chenmo opened his eyes suddenly. Cold sweat covered his body and his eyes were red. He pushed himself up, touched his face, and found that he was crying. After recovering his past life memories, he finally understood why he had an obsession, possessiveness, and unreasonable feelings for his wife, especially after she woke up from a high fever. Lee Chenmo clenched his trembling fists and said in a hoarse voice, "Yua, I finally found you." He wiped away his tears, took a deep breath to calm down, and went to the kitchen to find his wife. Seeing her frying eggs, he hugged her tightly from behind, kissed her earlobe, and said hoarsely, "Good morning, wife." Raising her head, Lu Jiu kissed his lips gently and asked, "Did you sleep well?" He leaned over and buried his face in her shoulder. "Go wash up first, and we can have breakfast together," she urged him when she saw the sky starting to get brighter. "Wife, I miss you." Lee Chenmo's voice was hoarse, and he couldn't bear to let her go. It felt like several lifetimes since he last held her like this. Normally, Lu Jiu would only smile shyly when she heard his affectionate words, but today, for some reason, she felt a dull pain in her heart when her husband said those words. "Husband, I miss you too," she said as she leaned against him. Lee Chenmo looked at his wife's red ears in surprise as the sadness and uneasiness in his heart immediately disappeared. He let out a satisfied sigh and said, "Wife, let's take our wedding photos this afternoon." "All right." He kissed his wife one more time, then went to wash up before he went to the pig pen. When he arrived at the pig pen, Ling Yun was already there, scooping up pig manure. Seeing him coming, Ling Yun said, "Good morning, Brother Lei." "Brother Ling, you are a few years older than me. Just call me Chenmo." Lee Chenmo poured the pig feed into the feeder as he spoke. Watching the pigs go to the feeder and eat in an orderly manner, Ling Yun said, "Chenmo, the pigs you raise look very smart. They eat very neatly and can even relieve themselves in the farthest corner of the pen." After hearing his words, Lee Chenmo observed the pigs and realized that what Ling Yun said was true. After thinking for a while, he went to get a large, flat wooden basin and placed it on the corner of the pig pen. After that, he looked at the pig and said, "That basin is for you to urinate and defecate." Ling Yun heard his words and thought he was talking to him, but when he raised his head, he found that Lee Chenmo was exchanging glances with the pigs. The pigs seemed to understand what he said, nodded, and continued eating. Ling Yun was stunned and said, "Chenmo, were you talking to a pig just now?" Lee Chenmo glanced at him and said nothing. Although he grew up in the army, when he saw his wife's face, he could accept any strange things calmly. What's more, he has recovered the memory of his previous life. As a person whose soul has traveled into this world, he knows that there are many magical things in this world that cannot be explained by science. Recalling his thoughts when he heard his wife talking about her senior, she seemed to have forgotten many memories of her past life, only remembering the time when he pretended to be her senior to approach her. She even forgot that they already lived together and did the most intimate things. Although he was sad that she had forgotten their memories, he was also relieved that with those happy memories, she had also forgotten those sad and painful memories. It's all right if she forgets, he will create more memories with her. Thinking that his girlfriend finally became his wife in this parallel world, a smile appeared on his face. Ling Yun looked at Lee Chenmo, who was in deep thought, and asked, "Why are you laughing?" Because he was in a good mood, Lee Chenmo replied with a smile, "Brother Ling, if you need more fertilizer, you can go to the pit I dug on the side of the mountain. This should be enough now, Ling Yun said after filling the cart with pig manure. All right. After Ling Yun left with the pig manure, Li Chenmo shoveled the rest into the cart, cleaned the pig pen, and then poured the pig manure into the hole he dug. After returning, he washed away the stink on his body before entering the bedroom. Seeing his wife sewing socks for him, Li Chenmo walked over and felt an uncontrollable feeling swelling in his heart. He leaned forward, gently caressed the back of her head, and kissed her softly. As his lips met his wife's soft, warm lips, he thought, "You are my wife, we can finally be together." When Li Chenmo deepened the kiss, Lu Jiu was caught off guard by her husband's enthusiasm early in the morning, and her eyes widened in surprise. This time he didn't ask her to close her eyes, but looked directly into her eyes, as if he wanted to see through her soul. After being kissed so many times by him, Lu Jiu felt that her husband's kiss today was different from before. The kiss was more demanding and domineering, as if he wanted to leave a mark on her body and soul, but she could feel that his hands were actually trembling when he pulled her closer. She was so dizzy from being kissed that she could only lean on her husband's warm chest and asked breathlessly, "Husband, what's wrong with you?" Li Chenmo put his chin on the top of her head and whispered hoarsely, "You are. I will never let you leave me again." Lu Jiu didn't hear what he was saying clearly and asked, "What did you say?" Closing his eyes, Li Chenmo took a few breaths before calming down and said, "It's nothing. Wife, let's eat." Due to the sudden change of topic, Lu Jiu was stunned for a moment, then came back to her senses and stared at her husband with a red face. Seeing her coquettish look, Li Chenmo felt itchy in his heart, as if he had been lightly scratched by a kitten. He reached out and touched her red earlobe and said, "Wife, you are so beautiful." Lu Jiu almost got a nosebleed from her husband's flirting today and could only say, "Stop fooling around. The food is getting cold." After having his way with his wife, Li Chenmo was in a good mood and ate more than usual, but Lu Jiu didn't dare to look directly at him. She kept her head down, thinking about what happened to her husband. He seemed to have changed overnight. By the time they finished breakfast, the sun had risen. Li Chenmo cleared the table and washed the dishes, while Lu Jiu went to the kitchen. Yesterday they had brought ingredients to Li Chengshuan's house, but after what happened yesterday, she thought it would be better to add a few more dishes that could nourish Father Li's body. Thinking about it, she entered her own space and made a large pot of chicken soup with medicinal herbs. Due to the time difference, the chicken soup should be ready by the time they leave the house. She left the space and appeared in the kitchen. She took a huge bamboo basket from the corner of the kitchen and took out a basket of eggs, several jars of meat sauce, several bags of fruit slices, and several bags of roasted nuts from her space. Then she took out a large vat from the corner of the kitchen and entered her own space to check the chicken soup. As expected, the soup was ready. After filling the vat with chicken soup, she left her space. She would bring out the vat later after they reached Li Chengshuan's house. After she finished tying the bamboo basket, Li Chenmo entered the kitchen and asked, "Wife, are you done? We should go now." Glancing at the sky outside the window, Lu Jiu nodded and asked softly, "Husband, can you help me carry it? It's too heavy for me." Li Chenmo's heart skipped a beat when he saw his wife acting coquettishly towards him. The person she is now and the person she was before are overlapping each other at this moment. Thinking of how she treated him so indifferently and pushed him away in his previous life, his heart tightened and he walked towards her. Li Chenmo took her into his arms, buried his head in her shoulder, and took a deep breath. Smelling her familiar fragrance, his uneasy heart finally calmed down. Even though she didn't know what happened to her husband, Lu Jiu still noticed something strange about him. She hugged him back and asked, "Husband, what's wrong?" Hearing her words, Li Chenmo hugged her tightly and said, "Wife, let me hug you for a while." Thinking that he might be affected by what happened yesterday, Lu Jiu hugged him back, patted his back gently and comforted him, "Husband, I'm here." Li Chenmo hugged her tightly for a while, then let go of her and said, "I'm fine now, let's go." After locking the door, they rode the bicycle to Li Chengshuan's house. When they arrived, Li Chen's was going out to borrow more tables and benches from the neighbors, while Zhang Dongmei and Pan Meijie were already busy boiling water and kneading dough. When Zhang Dongmei saw them coming, she said, "Third brother, you brought so much meat and white flour. Is the money father gave you enough?" Li Chenmo put the bamboo basket in the kitchen and said, "That's enough. We used the remaining money to buy more eggs and some snacks." "Brother-in-law, your family is so generous," Pan Meijie said with wide eyes. After putting the bamboo basket away, Li Chenmo didn't stay in the kitchen and went to help his brother. In addition to Zhang Dongmei and Pan Meijia, Chen Anwen and several villagers also helped in the kitchen. Lu Jiu observed them and saw that they were busy making noodles and steamed buns, and no one paid attention to her. She blocked their sight with her body and bent down to take out the things in the bamboo basket. At the same time, she took out a vat of chicken soup with medicinal herbs from her space. The moment she took out the herbal chicken soup, Pan Meijia smelled it and asked, "Why does it smell so good? Who is cooking chicken soup?" Hearing Pan Meijia's words, Lu Jiu was speechless. What kind of nose does her friend have that allows her to notice it as soon as she takes out the chicken soup from her space? After sniffing a few more times, Pan Meijia suddenly turned around and locked her eyes on the vat next to Lu Jiu's feet. Seeing the vat, she asked with a smile, "Jiu, did you bring over chicken soup?" But I don't know if it would be enough for everyone, so I also plan to make some egg drop soup," Lu Jiu said with a smile. After everyone heard Lu Jiu's words, they all looked at the basket of eggs, a few jars of meat sauce, and a few packages of food. Although they don't know what's in the oil paper packaging, everyone knows it's good stuff. Lu Jiu found several bamboo plates, poured roasted nuts and fruit slices on them, and said at the same time, "While the guests are waiting, we should prepare some snacks for them." "I'll help you take it out," one villager said with a smile. "Thank you, Auntie," Lu Jiu thanked her with a smile. "Jiu, since you have the best cooking skills, why don't you cook and we will assist you?" asked another villager. Zhang Dongmei, Chen Anwen, and Pan Meijia heard her words and knew that she wanted to learn some recipes from Lu Jiu. They looked at Lu Jiu and shook their heads, wanting her to reject the villager. Lu Jiu looked at her sister-in-law and went silent for a moment. After thinking for a while, she said embarrassedly, "Auntie, I can only cook a little bit. What's more, I'm not in good health and I can't cook so many dishes at once. I'm afraid I need everyone's help with the cooking." Hearing her humble words, the villagers looked at each other, knowing that they would learn nothing from her today. Now that she said that, they can't force her to show the recipe. After some consideration, they finally agreed to cook together. Even though there were a lot of people helping out, it still took more than 2 hours to get everything ready. In addition to the herbal chicken soup prepared for the elders, they also prepared egg drop soup for the rest of the guests. As for meat dishes, they prepared braised pork and steamed fish. Although each table only had half of the steamed fish and a small plate of braised pork, it was already a luxurious and delicious meal. For vegetable dishes, they made shredded potatoes and stir-fry vegetables. The staple food is fried noodles and steamed buns. By lunchtime, everyone was seated and chatting while snacking on roasted nuts and fruit slices. Zhang Dongmei walked to the front yard and found Father Li. "Father, can we serve food now?" Father Li glanced at everyone, and when he saw that everyone was there, he nodded and said, "MHMM, let's serve the food." Not long after, the dishes were served one after another. When everyone saw the noodles and white flour steamed buns, they were all stunned. They couldn't help but salivate when they saw that there were not only vegetarian dishes and egg soup, but also steamed fish and braised meat. When Lu Jiu came out of the kitchen, she saw her husband coming back with 2 children. When she saw their faces, she remembered that the little boy was the one who told them about Father Li yesterday. She had met them once before, and the boy reminded her before she left for the mountain. Looking at them, she found them pleasing to the eye. They would look cute and nice if they weren't so thin and malnourished. She walked up to her husband and said, "Husband, the food is ready. We should join Father and the others." Dong Li and Dong Huang saw her and said in unison, "Hello, Aunt Li." Lu Jiu squatted in front of them and said, "Good child, thank you for notifying me and my husband yesterday. We prepared a meal to thank everyone. Please come in." Dong Li held her sister's thin hand and said, "Thank you, Aunt Li, for inviting us." Li Chenmo patted his head and walked in with his wife while the children followed suit. After finding a seat for them, he took his wife and sat next to Li Chen's. In addition to dishes, the Li family also prepared some fruit wine for the adults and soy milk for the children. This wine was brewed by Lu Jiu using the things in her space. Even if they only drink a little, it will be of great benefit to their health. After the village's elders and Father Li started eating, everyone finally moved their chopsticks. Although the Li family was still mourning, when everyone learned about Li Chengxuan's words when he left yesterday, and the Li family's decision to remove his name from the Li family genealogy, everyone regarded the meal as a party instantly. What a blessing it is to be able to cut ties with such a person. Despite there being no jokes and laughter as usual, the villagers were still smiling, and the gloomy atmosphere during morning was gone. Everyone had a great time and left after helping to clean up the house. Because there were no leftovers, Lu Jiu gave 2 milk candies to the villagers to bring back as a good luck gift. Since Li Chengxun was expelled from the Li family, his house has now been returned to Father Li. When only the Li family was left in the living room, Father Li said, "Since you all have a house, I plan to hand over this house to the government. The money received later will be given to the third son as payment for Li Chengxun's debt." Li Chen's was silent for a moment and said, "This is not a bad thing. After all, the house will be empty, and we still need to pay high taxes. Therefore, it is better to leave it to the government. In this way, we can save some money from paying taxes every year." Zhang Dongmei agreed with her husband and said, "Father, I think this is good." Unlike them, Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu knew what would happen in the future. During the economic reform period around 1990s, land and property prices rose significantly. Even for houses in the village, when the country enters the development period, the government will spend a lot of money or give them a better house as compensation for the land and houses. Father Li spent 600 yuan to build this house, but in the future the house will cost more than 250,000 yuan. Judging from the location of Zai village, it can even be used as a resort. Therefore, if possible, they should purchase more land at the onset of economic reforms. It can be considered as an investment. Seeing that Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu were silent, Father Li asked, "Third son, do you have any other suggestions?" After weighing the pros and cons, Li Chenmo said, "Father, I think it is better for us to keep this house. We can lend it to the production team as a dormitory for educated youth. In exchange, we can ask for a reduction in taxes. We don't know what will happen in the future, so in the end it's better to keep it." Both Father Li and Li Chen's trust Li Chenmo very much, not only because he was the only one in his family who went to school, but also because he understood the political situation of the government. With connections, he can get information faster and more accurately. Father Li remembered what the educated youth had said before and had a premonition that something big was going to happen, something that would shake up an entire country and bring about huge changes in their current lives. After thinking about it, Father Li said, "Then we will follow your suggestion. I will go and talk to the team leader about this later." "Father, my wife and I will pay the tax. You don't have to worry about it," Li Chenmo added. Father Li nodded and said, "In that case, I will transfer this house to your name." Li Chen's and Zhang Dongmei had no objections. If Li Chenmo paid the taxes, the house should belong to him. What's more, this house was originally used as a mortgage when Li Chengxuan borrowed food from Li Chenmo. After the discussion, Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu returned home. They entered Lu Jiu's space to take a shower and change clothes. When they came out of her space, they also brought their wedding dresses. Then, they rode bicycles to the county town to take wedding photos. At the same time in the county town, Li Chengxuan was panicking while looking for his money in his rented house. After he discovered his bag was torn yesterday, he started looking for his money. He searched every road he took but could not find the money. After searching for a long time, he returned to the house he rented and smashed everything in a rage. "Damn it, if I knew I would lose it, I would never have brought it with me," he said through gritted teeth. He tasted blood in his throat as he thought about the money he had lost. He clenched his fists tightly and swallowed the iron taste with difficulty. "I can't just give up. Since I can't get it back, I have to find other ways to get more money," he said to himself with red eyes. At this moment, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind, and his eyes lit up. Yes, how could I forget that place? He took one look at the food in the cupboard and made his decision. Since he was in urgent need of money, he didn't want to wait until tomorrow and quickly packed up the salt, oil, sugar and meat. He wrapped everything in a cloth and put it in his bag. After locking the door, he went to the market. Different from the black market in town where Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu visited, the black market in the county town is larger and has more items. But because there are so many people, the risk is also higher. Generally speaking, unless necessary, no one will go to the black market after dawn because it is easy to be discovered by the officers. But for Li Chengxuan, he had no other choice. His boss only agreed to let him marry Yanyan if he gave 500 yuan and a bicycle as a bride price. Not to mention the wedding banquet, the bride price alone cost him 800 yuan. He had agreed without hesitation before because he thought he still had the money. How can he marry her now that he has no money? Therefore, he could only sell the food on the black market. As long as he can give them half of the bride price, his marriage is basically settled. After he embezzles some money from the factory, he would be able to pay the rest of the bride price. When he marries Yanyan, his status will be improved and he will earn more money, whether through bribes, salaries, or other means. Since he had never sold food on the black market, He didn't know he shouldn't act suspiciously and covered his face. As he entered a dark alley, 2 officers noticed his suspicious behavior and decided to follow him. When people around saw the officers entering the black market, they quickly dispersed and informed their friends. So when Li Chengxuan came to the alley where he usually bought meat and grain, he found that there was no one there. Thinking that it might be because it was past noon and not many people came to visit, he decided to wait. After waiting for nearly an hour, he finally saw a young man covering his face with a scarf walking towards him. Seeing him, Li Chengxuan's eyes lit up. Without wasting any more time, he walked up to him and asked in a low voice, "Comrade, are you here to buy or sell?" The young man's eyes flickered for a moment, then returned to normal. He pulled down his hat and said, "Buy." Hearing his words, Li Chengxuan felt happy and asked again, "What do you want to buy?" The young man looked at his bag and asked, "What do you have?" Thinking that he finally got a customer, Li Chengxuan opened the bag, showed the contents and said, "I have meat, oil, salt, and sugar." As soon as the young man saw those things, he grabbed Li Chengxuan's arms and shoulders, twisted his arm on his back, and then pushed him against the wall. Suddenly being pushed and hitting his head against the wall, Li Chengxuan was dizzy and shouted in shock, "What are you doing?" The young man held Li Chengxuan's arm tighter and said, "You were arrested for a private transaction." When Li Chengxuan heard this, his face turned pale. He struggled and shouted, "No, you recognized the wrong person. I didn't make any private transactions, you can't arrest me." As soon as he finished speaking, several men rushed over and put a handcuff on his wrists. The young man looked at them and said, "Take him and the evidence back to the police station. If he doesn't cooperate, just use the usual methods." Hearing his cold words, Li Chengxuan's pale face suddenly became even paler. He knew that if he was taken to the police station, his life would be over. Even if he hadn't been sentenced to death, he would have spent at least a few years in prison. With a burst of strength, he managed to push the officers away and free himself. As he ran, he heard the officers shout, "Don't run or you'll be shot." Li Chengxuan gritted his teeth and decided to continue running. The next moment, he heard a gunshot. Bang! Feeling the burning sensation coming from his knees, he opened his eyes wide in horror. The next second, he felt severe pain in his knee and fell to the ground. Before he could react, his body was suppressed by the police and he could not move at all. This time, no matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't escape. What's more, he has been shot in the knee. Judging from his injuries, even if he could save his life, he would be disabled for life. But his original sentence of a few years in prison turned into a life sentence when he attempted to escape. But at this moment, Li Chengxuan didn't know how his life would end, and he was still yelling at the police. "Let me go, you got the wrong person." When he was pushed into the police truck, Li Chenmo and Lu Jiyu happened to pass by and saw him. Both of them were a little surprised, but after hearing the conversation around them, they understood the situation. Looking at the blood on the ground, Lu Jiyu whispered, "Husband, we should not go to that place again." Li Chenmo looked at the police truck thoughtfully and nodded. Lu Jiyu was worried that one day they would end up like Li Chengxuan. Now that she has accumulated enough funds to serve as their business capital, she should stop going to the black market. If Huzi needs something from her, he will ask Pan Major to contact her as a middleman. She won't go to the black market again. Just the thought of her husband being in the same situation like Li Chengxuan and losing him forever could make her tremble in pain and fear. Feeling his wife's trembling, Li Chenmo quickly held her hand and said, "Wife, don't be afraid. We won't go there anymore." Her fear slowly disappeared as her cold hands were wrapped in warm palms. After making sure his wife was okay, Li Chenmo let go of her hand and said, "We should go, otherwise the store will be closed." Lu Jiyu nodded and sat on the back seat of the bicycle. As they left, she turned to look at the back of the police truck. Perhaps this will be the last time they see Li Chengxuan. As for the food he owed, they couldn't get it back. But as long as she is no longer disturbed by him, she is willing to forget this debt. When they arrived at the store, Lu Jiyu's mood had calmed down. After parking and locking the bicycle, they entered the shop. The photographer was an old man, one of the few who could afford a camera. Seeing a young couple walking into the store, the old man smiled and asked, "Hello, comrade. Are you here to take a personal photo?" It's not often that people come to take photos, except for a personal photo that can be used in the event of passing. But looking at their young appearance, the photographer suspected that they were not here to take photos for that. Hearing this, Lu Jiyu smiled and said, "Comrade, we are here to take a family photo." "So that's what happened, please come in." The old man smiled even happier and led them inside. When people take photos, the cost depends not only on how many photos are taken, but also how many people are in the photos. As ridiculous as it sounds, this is the only way a photographer can make more money. So when the old man heard that they were going to take a family photo, he was very happy. When spending the same amount of money to develop photos, the cost of a family photo is 30% higher than that of an individual photo. Due to regulations, they couldn't take intimate photos. While Li Chenmo was unhappy, Lu Jiu was very satisfied. In the first photo, both of them were wearing a couple's outfits. Lu Jiu and Li Chenmo were sitting side by side with their hands on their knees. The two sat together, 10 centimeters apart. The old man saw him frowning and said, "Comrade, please smile." Lu Jiu looked at her husband's gloomy expression and knew he was unhappy. After thinking for a while, she moved her chair closer and held his hand. She clasped her fingers together, looked at the old man and said, "Comrade, please take a picture for us." The old man looked at their clasped hands and said, "Comrade, are you sure? If you pose like that, you can't show your photo to others. It's enough for me and my husband to take a look." After hearing her words, Li Chenmo finally smiled and looked at her tenderly. Sensing his gaze, Lu Jiu turned to look at him and smiled sweetly. The two people's hands were clasped together, and the old man felt that they were a match made in heaven, as it should be. The old man pressed the shutter, and the smoke filled the air, capturing their love in the photo. In the second photo, both of them put on wedding clothes. The moment the old man saw them wearing wedding clothes, his eyes lit up and he said, "Your wedding clothes are so beautiful." Li Chenmo caressed his clothes and said proudly, "Thank you, my wife made it herself." The old man smiled at his proud tone and said, "You can pose however you want." This time, Lu Jiu sat on a chair with her hands folded on her knees, while Li Chenmo stood behind her with a hand on her shoulder. The two looked at the camera with smiles on their faces. While the pose wasn't as intimate as the last one, their joy was clearly visible to everyone who saw the photo. After changing their clothes, Lu Jiu went to pay. "The fee is 5 yuan. You can take these photos in 3 days," the old man said, handing her a receipt. Lu Jiu took out her purse, paid for the photo, and thanked him. As they left the store, the sun had begun to set and they decided to return to the village. After returning home, they tended the vegetable garden before going to have dinner and rest. At the same time, the news that Li Chengshuan was arrested by the police spread not only throughout Xi village, but also to the factory where he worked, and to Professor Zhang. Professor Zhang was surprised when he heard the news. He didn't expect that he was a person who would break the law. While he was surprised, he just shook his head and put the matter behind him. As for Chu Yanyan's family, her father immediately fired Li Chengshuan after hearing the news and warned her to not contact him anymore. Early the next morning, Lu Jiu woke up before dawn and went to the backyard to wash up. Today is the first day of planting. Although it is not as difficult as the summer harvest season, the temperature has continued to rise recently. She didn't know if the weather in this world was any different from the previous world, but it's only mid-February, not even early spring yet, and it's already very hot during the day. She couldn't imagine how hot it would be in the summer. What's more, there was no air conditioning in the current era. Just thinking about the hot temperature made her shudder. Fortunately, the temperature in her space has always been comfortable. She and her husband can sleep in the space during the summer and stay in it for longer periods of time. They can also review textbooks, so that when the college entrance examination resumes, they are ready. After she finished washing up, Lu Jiu went to check the chicken coop and water the vegetable garden and peach tree. When she watered the peach tree, she found that the peach tree had already produced fruit. Under normal circumstances, the harvesting period of peaches is from the end of June to the end of August, but with the fertilizer and water in her space, it looks like she will be able to harvest peaches in early May. Although it takes longer than the peaches growing in her space, compared to ordinary peach trees, the growth rate of this peach tree is already almost a month faster. It seems that she has to wait until mid-June to pick the peach tree, otherwise it may arouse people's suspicion. After watering the peach tree, Lu Jiu went to inspect the vegetable garden. Most of the crops have started flowering and will be ready for harvest in a month. As for the lettuce, judging by its size, it's ready to be harvested. The leaves are tender and large, comparable to mature lettuce. After inspecting the vegetable garden in the front yard, she went to water the vegetable garden in the backyard. While watering her crops, she saw that her cherry tomatoes had begun to bloom and would be ready for harvest in April. It is harvested earlier than regular tomatoes, which are harvested from May to October. As for cucumbers, they will take some time to mature and can be harvested in mid-May or early June. As for melons, she grows cantaloupes and watermelons, both of which take longer to ripen. She could harvest them as early as May. Sunflowers, on the other hand, can be harvested around the end of June. But with the water and fertilizer in the space, Lu Jiu is sure that she can have a good harvest all year round. After watering the vegetable garden and preparing pig feed, she went to the kitchen to light a fire and boil a pot of water. When the water boiled, she poured it into the vat to let it cool down. Then she steamed some rice with pandan leaves on the stove and made miso soup in the brazier. In addition to tofu and green vegetables, she also put eggs in the miso soup. Miso soup is easy to make and ready in 15 minutes. She grilled some fish in a brazier and sprinkled some salt and pepper. When the fish is ready, she squeezes some lemon over it and sprinkles some paprika for extra flavor. It took her about 6 minutes to grill the fish. When the rooster crows, Li Chenmo wakes up and goes to the backyard to wash his face. Smelling the aroma of grilled fish, he smiled and walked to the kitchen. Seeing his wife busy cooking, he walked over, leaned over, and kissed her earlobe gently. "Good morning, wife." Turning around, Lu Jiu saw that her husband was in a good mood, kissed his chin, and said with a smile, "Good morning, husband." "Husband, I made rice for breakfast today. You have to plant the seeds today, so you need to eat more," she added. Thank you, wife." Li Chenmo kissed her again before he went to take the pig feed and walked to the pig pen. When he arrived at the pig inn, Ling Yun was already there, cleaning the pig pen. Seeing him coming so early, Li Chenmo raised his eyebrows and asked, "Brother Ling, are you not sleeping at all?" Ling Yun glanced at him and said, "I have something to do, so I got up early. It seems that you are in a good mood. Did anything good happen?" Li Chenmo let out a hum in reply and walked to the wooden basin in the corner of the pig pen. He saw that it was almost full and wondered how those little pigs could produce so much pig manure. With so much manure every day, he can let the production team use it as fertilizer. As soon as this thought crossed his mind, his eyes lit up. Every year, the production team has to ask for pig manure or cow manure from neighboring production teams because they only raise 4 pigs and 2 cows, and the manure they produce is not enough. If he gives the pig manure to the production team, he might even get some work points. Although his wife's space can produce unlimited food, no one will refuse extra food. Just as he was deep in thought, Ling Yun came over. He scooped the pig manure in the wooden basin into the cart and said, "Chenmo, your pig manure is really good. I have only used it to fertilize the vegetable fields a few times, but the vegetable seedlings are growing vigorously and faster." Li Chenmo's eyes flashed when he heard Ling Yun's words. He scooped the pig manure into the cart and said calmly, "Maybe it's because my wife also feeds the pigs with beans, corn, and other food in addition to pigweed, so the manure is better than usual." Ling Yun was startled by his words and said, "Chenmo, your wife is really generous. Your pig feed is better than human food." Relying on the memory of his previous life, Li Chenmo knew that pig feed was very important if he wanted to fatten pigs. So he smiled and said, "Since my wife and I want to raise pigs to 200 kilograms, we can't be stingy with pig feed." Ling Yun was surprised and said, "Can you really fatten them to 200 kilograms?" Li Chenmo nodded and said, "There should be no problem." Ling Yun was silent for a while and asked, "Can your wife share her pig feed formula with me?" "Brother Ling, do you also want to raise pigs?" Li Chenmo asked in surprise. Now that I'm getting married, I should prepare more food for the wedding banquet in the future," Ling Yun said with a smile. Li Chenmo chuckled and joked, "Should I prepare a wedding gift for you from now on?" Hearing this, Ling Yun nodded and said nonchalantly, "Then I'll thank you first. Make sure to prepare a big red packet for me and my wife." Li Chenmo was speechless by his shameless remarks and could only shake his head. He didn't know what gave him such confidence that Pan Magia would accept his proposal. Educated youths will not choose to settle with villagers unless they are over the age of marriage. But from his point of view, Pan Magia has feelings for Ling Yun, and it's not as simple as liking. Although he is a 30-year-old man, Ling Yun is indeed handsome and in his prime. For him, seducing a young girl is as easy as walking. It seems like he and his wife really need to get their wedding gifts ready in advance. Li Chenmo thought for a while and said, "I'll ask my wife about the pig feed matter first." Thank you. With the cooperation of the two people, the pig pen was cleaned in no time, and all the pig manure was transporting out. When Li Chenmo came back, breakfast was ready. Lu Jiu had already prepared hot water for him to wash up with. He took a bath first and then went to the bedroom. Seeing that he came back faster than usual, Lu Jiu asked, "Husband, have you met with Brother Ling again?" Li Chenmo raised his eyebrows at his wife and said, "MHMM, he came early today and had already helped me clean up the pig pen." "It seems that you two have a good relationship," Lu Jiu said casually while observing her husband's expression. Li Chenmo also felt a little strange when thinking about his interaction with Ling Yun. He knows his personality very well. Although he has no memory of his previous life, he is indifferent to strangers and mostly unfeeling to others except for his family. There must be a reason why he would let his guard down so easily and approach Ling Yun. Just then, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind, and he remembered the similarities between them. He opened his eyes wide in surprise and whispered, "Could it be?" Lu Jiu knew that his husband had finally come to that conclusion, and added, "If I didn't know that you have no family relationship with him, I might think that you and Brother Ling are brothers." This time Li Chenmo looked at his wife, his eyes full of pride, and thought to himself, "My Yue is indeed very smart. This is indeed suspicious and I should investigate." Seeing that her husband was silent, Lu Jiu sighed and thought, "Husband, you are usually really smart. Why can't you see the similarities between Brother Ling and yourself? Standing together, he looks more like your brother than that scum Li Chengshuan. What's more, he and Li Chengshuan are the same age. You should be suspicious of the possibility of the change at birth plot twist. Ah." Li Chenmo didn't know that his wife was complaining about him in her heart, so he leaned over and kissed her forehead, saying softly, "It would be great if Brother Ling were my second brother. Now, let's eat before the food gets cold." Now that he said so, Lu Jiu could only see how things turned out. She served her husband a bowl of rice and another bowl of miso soup. "Drink some soup first," she reminded him softly. Li Chenmo looked at the Japanese-style breakfast in front of him and said with a smile, "MHMM, thank you, wife." Although she has lost the memory of them living together, she is still the same. When he regained his memories of his previous life, the way he ate changed. Although he still eats quickly, the way he eats is more refined, elegant, and pleasing to the eye. When Lu Jiu saw her husband eating, some memories that did not belong to the original soul and herself flashed in her mind. It was as if she had seen him eating like this a long time ago, and that they had eaten together countless times. Finding his wife looking at him blankly, Li Chenmo's eyes flickered for a moment, then returned to normal. He picked out the fish bones, put the fish meat into her bowl and said, "Wife, eat more." Looking at the neatly picked fish bones on the plate, she was surprised by his change. What happened to her husband? Just when Lu Jiu was confused, Li Chenmo already had a plan in mind. Judging from his wife's reaction just now, if he reenacts the memory of his previous life, she may be able to recover her memory. While she was still lost in her thoughts, Li Chenmo said, "Wife, Brother Ling wants to raise pigs. He wondered if you would be willing to share your pig feed formula." Lu Jiu came to her senses after hearing this and said, "I don't mind sharing the pig feed formula, but the cost will be very high for him to prepare it. What's more, some ingredients need to be found in the mountains." Li Chenmo thought for a while and asked, "Can the formula be simplified?" Lu Jiu pondered for a moment and said, "There is no problem in simplifying, but the efficiency may be lost by about 30%. After all, these ingredients are ingredients that increase the nutrition of pigs. If nutrients are lacking, it will be difficult for pigs to fatten. What's more, the main boosters are actually water and pellets in my space," she added. After she finished speaking, both of them were silent. Lu Jiu was willing to help Ling Yun because she suspected that Ling Yun was Father Li's biological second son, but Li Chenmo really wanted to help him, even if he was not his biological second brother. After weighing the pros and cons, Lu Jiu finally said, "Husband, how about you go and ask Brother Ling if he is willing to cooperate with us?" Li Chenmo looked at his wife and asked, "Wife, what do you mean?" "Husband, we built a large pig pen, which is more than enough to raise 50 pigs. Wouldn't it be easier to share it with Brother Ling than to build another pig pen? If he raises pigs by himself, he can only raise 2 at most. But if we cooperate, we can raise up to 10 pigs together," Lu Jiu said with bright eyes. The more she thought about it, the better her ideas sounded. "Moreover, if 2 people work together, it won't be too tiring for you or Brother Ling. As for the pig feed, we can just use those produced in my space. It saves us time and energy. When we get the work points, we can split it 50-50 with Brother Ling. In this way, we can earn more work points," she added. Li Chenmo's eyes flashed when he heard his wife's thoughts. This plan is possible. Perhaps with this plan, he could even invite his brother and his wife's brothers. But to do this, he needed to talk to them and get the brigade's permission first. Li Chenmo looked at his wife and said dotingly, "My wife is so smart, and your idea is a good one. I will discuss it with Brother Ling later. Lu Jiyu was very happy that she could help her husband and was in a good mood. After breakfast, Li Chenmo went to the backyard to wash dishes, while Lu Jiyu went to the kitchen to prepare her husband's water and snacks. For today's snack, she prepared boiled eggs and kumquats. She found these kumquats in the mountains, so she planted them in her own space. Now she has many products made from kumquats. However, she still prefers to eat fresh kumquats because kumquats contain 80% water and are very good for hydrating the body. It also strengthens and supports the immune system. Considering that her husband had a good relationship with Ling Yun, she packed another bag of kumquats for him. When she came out of the kitchen, her husband was already waiting for her in the living room. Seeing him wearing patched old clothes, a straw hat and a towel, Lu Jiyu was still amazed at how handsome he was. No matter what clothes he wore, he still had a strong aura. But today, for some reason, she felt that he didn't look like a soldier, but more like a young master. It was as if the person in front of her was her senior Yi Yan, not the male protagonist Li Chenmo. Lu Jiyu walked up to Li Chenmo with a smile, handed the bamboo basket to him and said, "Husband, I prepared some kumquats for you as a snack." Li Chenmo took the bamboo basket and said, thank you, wife. I also prepared some for Brother Ling. Remember to give it to him when you see him later," she added. When Li Chenmo heard that his wife had also prepared snacks for another man, his eyes narrowed dangerously. He approached her and asked, "Wife, why did you suddenly prepare his share? Are you still thinking about his handsome face, HM?" Lu Jiyu smelled the sourness in his words and said, "Husband, what are you thinking? I treat him well because he is your friend. As your wife, I should give you more face in front of him." Li Chenmo looked into her eyes and was fascinated by her bright and clear eyes. Unable to restrain his desire, he leaned down and took his wife's soft lips into his mouth. He had kissed her countless times in his previous life, and he knew how to make her feel comfortable. Although the kiss only lasted 5 minutes, Lu Jiyu felt that her soul was almost being sucked away by her husband, and her body softened. She could only lean on her husband and said breathlessly, "Husband, you should leave now, otherwise you will be late." Li Chenmo thought his wife was too cute and let out a chuckle. He kissed the top of her head and said in a low voice, "Okay, you're very busy these days, don't tire yourself and rest more." Lu Jiyu nodded and said, I will bring your lunch over later." After hugging for a while, Li Chenmo reluctantly let go of her and left home with a smile. Although he does not have the same authority and wealth as in his previous life, he is very satisfied with his current life. No one here can separate them. Such a wonderful life. Lu Jiyu locked the door and went to the kitchen to get the bamboo basket. Afterwards, she went to the front yard and started to harvest the lettuce. She picks a 4 to 6 inch leaf and cuts it off with a harvesting knife, a 1/4 inch off the stem. This way, the lettuces will continue to grow, and she can continue to harvest them until they sprout flowers. Although the plot of land is not large, she only collected half of the plot and already filled a large bamboo basket. Looking at the growing lettuce, a bright smile appeared on her beautiful face. With this amount of fresh lettuce, she can share it with her family and friends. While it is almost early spring, fresh vegetables are rare and expensive on the market. Her family eats a lot of pickles, and eating green vegetables is a good change for them. After resting for a while, she continued to harvest lettuce. Not long after, she heard a knock at the door, followed by a girl's milky voice, "Is anyone home?" Hearing her voice, Lu Jiyu stopped what she was doing and opened the door. When she opened the door, she saw a bundle of firewood in front of her. The next moment, a thin girl appeared behind the firewood, her forehead covered with sweat. She smiled at her, showing the 2 missing teeth in the front, and said, "Aunt Li, this is the firewood that Uncle Li asked me and my brother to pick up. Where do you want me to put it?" Lu Jiyu was a little surprised to see that such a young girl could speak so fluently. Are all children in this world born with high IQs? Seeing her thin wrist, she took the firewood and asked, "Little girl, what is your name?" "Aunt Li, my name is Dong Huang. I am 5 years old." "Have you eaten yet?" Lu Jiyu asked again. Dong Huang hesitated for a moment, but remembered her brother's words and shook her head. Her brother told her that if Aunt Lei or Uncle Li gave her food, she should accept it because it was their firewood payment. Seeing her shaking her head, Lu Jiyu held her hand and said, "Then come in." Dong Huang was stunned when her small palm was wrapped by that soft and warm big palm. She followed Lu Jiyu into the house in a daze. This was the first time since she could remember that an adult had gently held her hand. Usually, it was her brother's rough little hands that held hers. Looking at Lu Jiyu's back, Dong Huang couldn't help but think how great it would be if she and her brother still had parents. She always envied other children who would be scolded by their parents if they didn't go home for dinner. Not knowing the little girl's complicated mood, Lu Jiu took her to the living room, poured her a glass of warm water, and asked, "What do you want to eat?" "Aunt Lee, everything is fine. However, Uncle Lee said he would give us 4 steamed buns in exchange for a bundle of firewood." Lu Jiu nodded after listening to her words and said, "Okay, wait here for a moment." Dong Huang sat obediently and took a sip of warm water. The moment she drank the water, her eyes lit up and she whispered while looking at the clean water with wide eyes, "It's so sweet." She was reluctant to drink the water all at once and took a small sip to savor the taste. Compared with the brackish water the villagers usually drink at home, the water Lu Jiu uses for drinking water comes from her space, so the water is refreshing with a hint of sweetness. While Dong Huang was enjoying the water, Lu Jiu went to the front yard to get the harvested lettuce before she put the firewood in the woodshed. She will continue to harvest later. To keep the lettuce fresh, she keeps it in her own space while she is in the kitchen. Thinking of Dong Huang's thin and malnourished body, Lu Jiu scooped a bowl of rice from the steamer, and then took out a bowl of herbal chicken soup and a grilled fish from her own space. In addition, she also boiled a cup of fresh milk on the brazier. Although the nutritional content of milk powder and fresh milk in her space is similar, fresh milk tastes better. Unfortunately, she is unable to provide fresh milk to her family as fresh milk is currently only available in the cities and capital and has not yet reached the county town, not to mention villages. After the milk boiled, she removed the pot from the brazier and poured the milk into the bamboo cup. She added a spoonful of honey and stirred it well. The meal was ready and she brought it to the living room on a bamboo tray. As soon as he entered the room, Lu Jiu saw Dong Huang drinking warm water as if she was drinking a delicious drink. She felt a pang of heartache for the little girl. She put the food on the table and said gently, "Drink the soup before eating, otherwise your stomach will hurt." Seeing the food in front of her, Dong Huang opened her eyes in surprise. There was not only a bowl of fragrant white rice, but also chicken soup, grilled fish, and even a glass of milk. Although her saliva had already flowed inside her mouth, Dong Huang still swallowed it and asked, "Aunt Lee, can I pack the food instead?" Lu Jiu was startled by her words. There must be a reason why she wants to eat later, even though she is very hungry. She sat down next to Dong Huang and asked, "Why? The food won't taste good when it's cold." Dong Huang licked her lips and said, "I want to share it with my brother. My brother hasn't eaten since yesterday and he has to go to work in the fields. He must be hungry." "Don't your parents let your brother eat?" Lu Jiu asked in surprise. When Dong Huang heard her question, the light in her eyes dimmed. She lowered her head and said, "My brother said that my parents have gone to a faraway place and will not come back." Hearing her words, Lu Jiu understood that her parents had passed away, and she felt uncomfortable saying those words that hurt her. "Dong Huang, I'm sorry." "Aunt Lee, it's okay, I'm used to it," Dong Huang said with a smile. When Lu Jiu saw her smile, her nose felt sore. Although she can't save every orphan in the world, she still has the ability to help Dong Huang and her brother. What's more, she has a space with unlimited resources. Feeding them 3 meals a day is no problem at all. After thinking about it, she said, "Dong Huang, your brother has his share. You should eat the food while it's still hot." Dong Huang was delighted when she heard her words and said, "Thank you, Aunt Lee." Then she picked up the spoon and started eating. Seeing that she was eating with relish, Lu Jiu said, "Eat slowly." Watching her eat, Lu Jiu picked out the fish bones and put the fish meat into her bowl. When she was eating, Dong Huang would smile at her from time to time. Although Dong Huang was petite, she still finished the food and drank all the milk and soup without leaving a drop. Putting the cup on the table, she smacked her lips as she reminisced about the taste and said, "Aunt Lee, let me help you wash the dishes." Lu Jiu did not refuse her offer and cleared the table. She poured hot water into the basin before letting her wash the dishes. While Dong Huang was busy washing the dishes, she went to the kitchen and wrapped the remaining rice in banana leaves and tied it with thin hemp rope. Then she took out a roasted chicken from the space, cut it into small pieces, and wrapped it in banana leaves. She also took out herbal chicken soup and milk, which she stored in bamboo tubes. In addition, she also gave them a few meat buns. She put everything into the bamboo basket and left the kitchen. When she came out, Dong Huang had finished washing the dishes and was waiting for her. Seeing that Lu Jiu had indeed prepared meals for her brother, she bowed to her and said, "Thank you, Aunt Lee. If you need us to send more firewood, just tell my brother." Lu Jiu handed her the bamboo basket and said, "All right, walk slowly and be careful on the road." Dong Huang took the basket and smiled even more happily when she felt how heavy it was. "Aunt Li, don't worry, I'll take my leave now." After saying this, she quickened her pace and walked towards the door. Lu Ju followed her to see her off, then locked the door and continued collecting lettuce. In the central area, Ling Yun frowned and looked at Pan Magia, who was talking to a young postman. It had been 3 days since the last time he talked to her at Li Chengshuan's house. He thought that by pretending to distance himself from her, she would realize her feelings for him and they could move forward into a relationship. But after waiting for several days, instead of showing any intention of getting close to him, she even got close to another man. Considering her feelings for the military man and himself, his girl didn't seem to understand the difference between a romantic relationship and a normal friendship. Seeing her smiling at that man, Ling Yun felt sour and decided not to listen to Xiao Li's advice. He was too stupid to believe that Xiao Li, who had never chased a girl, could give him good advice on chasing a wife. It would be better to attack his girl directly. After making this decision, Ling Yun suppressed the jealousy in his heart and walked towards Pan Magia. When he was still a few meters away from them, he heard the young postman say, "Comrade Pan, I heard my mother say that you have helped her several times before. I must treat you to dinner to thank you for your help. When are you free?" Pan Magia waved her hand and said, "Comrade Wang, there is no need to invite me to dinner. What I did is just a small thing." "How is that possible? Without your help, my mother would have sprained her back, and it would have cost us a lot of money to take her to the doctor. Treating you to dinner is what I should do." Hearing the young man's words, Ling Yun let out a snort and sneered in his heart. Every word he said was full of hidden intentions. Only his naive girl could believe that the young man had no other intention than to thank her. He quickened his pace, wanting to interrupt their conversation. Before she could reject his invitation again, Pan Magia felt someone standing behind her and turned around instinctively. Seeing Ling Yun's gloomy expression, she took 2 steps back, like a wife who was caught cheating on her husband. Ling Yun glanced at the young man, then looked at Pan Magia and asked, "Magia, who is this?" Pan Magia and the young man were both stunned when they heard him calling her so intimately. The young man looked at Ling Yun from head to toe, as if he was assessing an enemy. Pan Magia was worried that Ling Yun might misunderstand, so she quickly said, "This is Aunt Wang's son. He is here to deliver my package." Ling Yun looked at the package in her hand and asked with raised eyebrows, "Did you ask uncle and aunt to deliver food again?" Pan Magia did not notice Ling Yun's ambiguous meaning when he called her parents uncle and aunt and said, "I did ask my mother to send me some snacks, but this package was too big. Maybe my mother made me new clothes." Ling Yun naturally took the package from her hand and said helplessly, "Next time just tell me what you want to eat. I'll go to town to buy it for you. Don't bother auntie with such a trivial matter. What's more, sending these things also costs a lot of money." Pan Magia pouted and whispered, "You ignored me for several days. How dare I ask you about this?" Ling Yun sighed and said, "I'm sorry, it's my fault. I shouldn't ignore you. Don't be angry with me anymore. How about I buy you some dumpling soup later as an apology?" After hearing his apologetic words, the grievances of the past 3 days suddenly disappeared, and Pan Magia's mood became brighter. She forgot that there was still a young man who was looking at them with complicated eyes. She narrowed her eyes as she looked at Ling Yun and said, "You said this yourself, I didn't force you." Ling Yun nodded and said with a smile, I said it myself." Pan Magia was very satisfied with his promise and said with a smile, "I want the dumpling soup sold in state-owned restaurants in the county." Ling Yun saw how cute she was and almost couldn't help but reach out and pinch her cheek, but since it was in public, he just nodded and said, "Okay." After making the promise, Ling Yun turned to look at the young man and said, "Comrade Wang, thank you for personally delivering the package to Magia. I will invite you for a drink later." No matter how slow the young man's mind is, he understands the profound meaning of Ling Yun's words when he sees his gaze. What's more, looking at the interaction between Pan Magia and Ling Yun, he knew that the wine he was talking about was their wedding wine. The young man suddenly deflated like a frozen eggplant. Feeling disappointed and broken-hearted, he forced an awkward smile and said, "I still need to deliver these packages, so I can't stay any longer." Pan Magia nodded and said, "Thank you, Comrade Wang, see you later." After the young man left, Ling Yun pulled her sleeve and asked, "Do you still want to see him later?" Pan Magia looked at him confusedly and said, "Of course I will meet him. After all, I have to send letters to my family at least once a month, and he works at the county post office. We will meet often." Ling Yun heard her use the word we and said with displeasure, "Next time you want to send a letter, just tell me. I can go to the county town and send it on your behalf." Thinking that she didn't have to go so far to deliver the letter, Pan Magia felt happy and quickly agreed, "Okay." Seeing that she had no objection, Ling Yun breathed a sigh of relief. After the urgent matter has been solved, it's time to solve the small problem. "Magia, I think it's better not to bother you with my problems before, but I miss your cooking. So can you cook for me again?" he asked. Hearing his words, Pan Magia hesitated for a while and said sheepishly, "About that, it's not me who cooks, but Lu Juyu's second sister-in-law." After saying that, she looked at Ling Yun's astonished face and quickly added, "However, I bought the ingredients and made the simple meals. Only the more complicated meals were cooked by Lu Juyu's second sister-in-law." Ling Yun knew that she was talking about Wang Muxeo. He didn't expect that he had been eating food cooked by other people's wives. While he was surprised, he also knew that it was understandable that she asked Wang Muxeo for help. After all, she was a girl who grew up in the city and was loved by her family. It's normal that she can't cook. Before Ling Yun could tell her that she could just cook a simple meal for him, Pan Magia said in a low voice, "I'm learning to cook, and I will cook your meal from now on. However, I can't guarantee the taste." After hearing her words, Ling Yun's mood soared. Doesn't telling him this mean telling him that her feelings for him were more than friends? If a girl learns to cook for a man, if that's not a romantic feeling, what is? Ling Yun felt happy and chuckled. He couldn't help but reach out to squeeze her palm and said, "Then I'll leave my future meal to your hands." Sure, leave it to me." Pan Magia blushed and stammered. Feeling embarrassed, she turned and ran away. Seeing her running away shyly, Ling Yun shook his head and chuckled. He walked over to the tree, placed her package together with their bamboo baskets and continued working. Because he was in a good mood, he felt energized and worked faster than usual. At the same time, in the capital, in the ward of the People's Hospital, Zyro Yiking was lying on the bed with a pale face. She grasped the sheets tightly with both hands and asked with disbelief, "Brother, what did you say?" Zyro Yiguan sat on the chair beside the bed and looked at his sister with mixed emotions. He was already investigating his sister's matter, from before she left the capital to the day she left Zai Village. Her sister told her that Pan Magia insisted on following her to Zai Village in order to get into her good side, but in fact, it was his sister who pestered Pan Magia to accompany her. In addition to that lie, his sister also told him countless lies, which made his impression of Pan Magia even worse. Zyro Yiguan also discovered that his sister not only stole the villagers' eggs, but also used his father's and his status to threaten Pan Magia and the villagers. If this matter was known to his superiors, it would not only ruin his career, but also cause trouble to the Zyro family. But the most outrageous thing she did was to encourage Su Anna to hurt Lu Juyu, and finally harmed Huang Yuanfeng. He couldn't understand how his gentle and kind sister could turn into a person full of jealousy, hatred, and viciousness. If it weren't for her face and voice, he might have thought the person in front of him was a stranger pretending to be his sister. He could barely recognize the person in front of him as his sister. After a long time, he said, "King, our parents have arranged your marriage. Although this is his second marriage and he is older than you, he knows your situation and is willing to marry you. Be good and listen to our parents." Zyro Yiking bit her lip until it bled and said, "Based on what? Who gives you the right to decide my future? I've already told you my husband is Li Chenmo, and I will not marry anyone else." Hearing her words, Zyro Yiguan frowned and said, King, stop making trouble. That person is already married, so stop thinking about it." Zyro Yiking was irritated by his words and sat up suddenly. Zyro Yiguan reached out to help her, but she slapped his hand away and shouted, "Why should I stop? I am the one who supposedly married Li Chenmo. That bitch Lu Jiu robbed my man. She is the one who should stop her wishful thinking and die." Zyro Yiguan clenched his reddened hand and looked at his sister with disappointment. Although the doctor had told their family about her emotional instability, she should have known that if she refused the marriage, she would have to marry Yang Lichao. Otherwise, she would be sent to prison for adultery. Unless the Zyro family reported the matter and charged Yang Lichao with rape, there was no other way to stop the marriage. However, the Zyro family is not just their parents, him and her, but also their grandparents, uncles, aunts, and cousins. In a family like the Zyro family, marriage between children is a tool for the family to increase its power. From the beginning, they had no right to decide on their own marriage, not to mention that she has lost her virginity and therefore lost her value. Her only choice is to marry the person designated by her parents or be expelled from the Zyro family. Zyro Yiguan took a deep breath and said, King, you know that our marriage cannot be decided by ourselves. As descendants of the Zyro family, we have enjoyed a lot of privilege due to our family background since birth, but we also have to shoulder our responsibilities. Zyro Yiking stared at him with red eyes. She is clearly living in a different world now, but why does she still not have the right to decide her own life? She doesn't want to admit defeat. There must be a way. Thinking that his sister finally calmed down, Zyro Yigyun advised, King, this man is really good. Except for his age, everything about him is good. It is better to marry him than to marry the man chosen by our grandfather. Knowing that she could not change his and their parents' minds, Zyro Yiking lowered her head and said, Give me some time to think about it. Seeing her dejected look, Zyro Yigyun said helplessly, Okay, you can think about it slowly and get more rest. With that he left the room. Zyro Yiking bit her nails and muttered, What should I do, what should I do? There must be a way. I can't believe that I can't change my fate. The next moment she felt a sharp pain in her head. She hugged her head and shouted, I told you to shut up. You are just a weak soul. How dare you go against me? Warning, suicide scene. If you don't feel comfortable with this, please skip it. Just as she was enduring the pain, a voice came vaguely in her head, saying angrily, Mu Yiking, you don't belong to this world. Give me my body back. Hearing her words, she sneered and said, Your body was broken by that bastard Yang Lichao and you still want to get it back. You should stay there obediently. It would be better if you stopped fighting and left quietly. If you listen to my words, I promise not to hurt your parents and your brother. After a long silence, the girl said again, Mu Yiking, I won't let you hurt my family. Since you refused to leave, you can't blame me for being ruthless. The next moment, Zyro Yiking's eyes lost focus before returning to normal. The eyes that were originally full of madness now became calm and sharp. I don't have much time, she whispered with a frown. She pulled the IV needle from her arm and quickly opened the drawer. She took out a piece of paper and a pen, wrote a short letter, and placed it on the table. She felt her consciousness begin to blur, and she staggered toward the window. Opening the window, she looked down at the dot-like people below. Her ward is a VIP ward, located on the 7th floor. If she jumped from this height, she would die. Fear took over her heart, and she was unwilling to end her life. But there is no other way to stop Mu Yiking from hurting more people. Feeling a sharp pain in her head, she knew she could no longer hesitate and opened the window. She dragged the chair to the window and stepped on it. Looking at the ground outside the window, her whole body was shaking with fear. When she closed her eyes, she heard Mu Yiking roaring in her mind, Zyro Yiking, you bitch, what are you doing? If you jump down, you will die with me. There is no way you can survive. Quickly get down. Zyro Yiking clenched her fists and said firmly, It doesn't matter. My body is broken and I have no way to keep living. Since life and death are the same to me, then I will drag you to hell with me. Mu Yiking, I will not let you hurt Major and my family anymore. Opening her eyes, Zyro Yiking looked at the horizon and said softly, Major, it seems that I can't fulfill our promise. I wish you happiness and I'm sorry for everything. She gritted her teeth and jumped down without hesitation. The moment she jumped out of the window, her body was taken over by Mu Yiking. Therefore, it is Mu Yiking who faces the fear of killing herself. With a bang, the body fell to the ground and dyed the ground scarlet red. Screams and panic filled the area as everyone noticed someone jumping from the building. Hearing the screams around him, Zyro Yigyun felt his heart skip a beat suddenly, and a bad premonition surged from the bottom of his heart. He ran towards the source of the screams and saw his sister's body lying on the ground motionless. In an instant, his face turned pale and his heart sank. His body shook with fear and disbelief. He stood motionless for a second due to shock, then rushed toward his sister. Don't block my way. He pushed away the onlookers and reached his sister's location. He stretched out his hand and pulled her blood-stained body into his arms. He looked at her and said tremblingly, King, open your eyes. Why are you lying on the ground? You will catch a cold. He pushed her hair away from her face and said, King, brother will not force you to marry that man. I'm sorry. Please wake up, okay? Just when he thought his sister was dead, he saw her eyelashes flutter slightly. He opened his eyes wide and quickly carried her into the hospital while shouting, Doctor, please save my sister. When the nurses saw Zyro Yiking's condition, they quickly brought a gurney and pushed her into the emergency room. Before Zyro Yigyun could enter the emergency room, he was stopped by a nurse and said, Comrade, please wait here. You are not allowed to go in. After saying that, the nurse closed the door, leaving him standing outside alone. He looked at the closed door and said regretfully, I shouldn't have forced you. King, as long as you wake up, brother promises to help you fulfill your wish. When Zyro Yiking's life and death were unknown, Lu Jiyu was riding a bicycle with a huge bamboo basket tied to the back seat, a small basket tied to the front, and several water kettles in the front basket. The huge bamboo basket contained fresh lettuce she had just picked. After harvesting the lettuce, she tried it and was surprised by the taste. The lettuce she grew was Boston lettuce. For some reason, when she found Boston lettuce in the forest, she felt even happier than when she found Ganoderma lucidum. Due to the water in the space, the taste was indeed better than the organic lettuce she had eaten in her previous life. It's tender and crispy, nutty, mild and sweet. It is commonly used as a wrap and can be eaten raw or cooked, but what surprised her most were the health benefits. After eating the lettuce, she felt refreshed and her fatigue disappeared, so she planned to take it over for her husband and their family to try. When she arrived at the central area, it was almost lunchtime and the sun was shining brightly in the sky. Although the sun is harsh, the hot weather is still bearable due to the dense trees and lush vegetation. Lu Jiu parked her bicycle under the tree and waved to Pan Magia. Seeing her friend coming, Pan Magia wiped her sweat and walked towards the tree. When she stood under the tree, feeling the breeze, she sighed and asked, "It's so hot today, why did you come out without a hat?" Hearing Pan Magia's words, Lu Jiu smiled and poured a glass of honey water from the kettle. She handed the cup to Pan Magia and said, "I forgot, come drink some water first." Looking at the golden water, Pan Magia asked, "Jiu, is this honey water? You can replenish your blood sugar." Pan Magia looked at her with wide eyes, handed the cup back to Lu Jiu and said, "I still have the fruit slices you gave me before. You should keep this for yourself. Wild honey is very rare, even if you have money. It's also hard to find it on the market. Don't worry too much, just drink. My family is still waiting for me to deliver water," Lu Jiu urged. Seeing her insistence, Pan Magia no longer refused and drank the honey water with relish. After drinking the honey water, she felt her dizziness lessened. After hesitating for a moment, she asked, "Jiu, can I have another cup?" Knowing that she was a foodie, Lu Jiu poured her another cup without saying anything else. But instead of drinking, she took the cup and walked away. Lu Jiu was stunned and looked at Pan Magia doubtfully. When she saw her handing the cup to Ling Yun, she suddenly understood. It turned out that her friend was asking for another cup of honey water for her man. "Our spring is finally here," she said with a smile. Feeling the burning gazes behind her, Pan Magia knew that Lu Jiu would tease her when she returned the cup. But she couldn't bear to enjoy the good things alone, while Ling Yun didn't even have a taste. So she thickened her face and asked for another cup. When Lu Jiu parked her bicycle, Ling Yun had already seen her. So when Pan Magia walked towards his direction with the bamboo cup, his heart skipped a beat. He looked at her and thought she was so nice. Whenever she has something good, she will never forget him. Pan Magia stood in front of him with flushed cheeks, handed the cup over and said, "Here, drink it quickly. I will return the cup to Jiu." Ling Yun knew that she was shy, so he drank the water directly without teasing her. When he tasted the sweetness, he was surprised. He knew that Lu Jiu and Pan Magia had a very good relationship. However, he did not expect that Lu Jiu would be so generous to his girl. As Pan Magia's man, he should repay their favor. Tonight, he planned to check the traps in the mountains. Maybe he could catch something good to give to them. After making the decision, he finished the honey water, then returned the cup to Pan Magia and said, "It's not good for us to accept your friend's things without returning the favor. I'll go get some good things later and you can give it to your friend." Pan Magia didn't understand the hidden meaning of his words at first and nodded. As she walked away, she found it strange. Why did his words sound strange? She was the one who accepted Lu Jiu's favor. Logically speaking, she was also the one who should repay Lu Jiu. What does it have to do with him? She turned to look at Ling Yun and found that he was looking at her with a teasing smile. Suddenly, the realization hit her. His meaning is clear because he has used the word "we." At this moment, she felt her heartbeat speed up, and everything suddenly seemed beautiful to her. The sky is bluer, the grass is greener, and even the hot temperatures are not as annoying as before. Seeing Pan Magia coming back with a red face, Lu Jiu teased, "Magia, why is your face so red? Do you feel uncomfortable?" Hearing her words, Pan Magia patted her cheek, handed the cup back to her and said, "The weather is too hot." Lu Jiu smiled and changed the subject. "Magia, I just harvested these vegetables. Give them a try." Pan Magia looked at the lettuce and asked, "Jiu, what kind of vegetable is this?" Although Boston lettuce was not available during this period, she found it in the forest. So she said calmly, "I don't know. I found it in the mountain forest and brought some seeds back to try to plant it. I didn't expect it to grow up either." When Panmagia heard this, her eyes widened and she said in a low voice, Juyu, you are so brave. Do you know how dangerous this mountain is? After several people were attacked and killed by tigers, villagers were prohibited from entering the mountain. Even if you go to mountainous areas, you can only go to the foothills. This time, it was Lu Juyu's turn to be surprised. She had been to the mountains several times, but had not seen any wild animals except those small ones that were edible. Seeing Panmagia's serious look, she was convinced that it was true and said, I really have no idea that we are prohibited from entering the mountain. Now you know, don't go up the mountain anymore. Fortunately, you were lucky and nothing happened, Panmagia sighed. Lu Jiyu nodded and said, Okay, I won't go to the mountain. Good, Panmagia nodded and took a bite of lettuce. After just one bite, she almost forgot her warning and felt that it was worth the risk to go to the mountain. This vegetable is so delicious. Seeing that she liked it, Lu Jiyu gave her some more and said, Share it with Brother Ling. I'll go now. All right, thank you, Jiyu. After filling Panmagia's water bottle, Lu Jiyu went to deliver lettuce and honey water to the Li family and the Lu family. When she reached the north area, sirens blared over the loudspeakers. When she parked her bicycle, Li Chenmo had already seen her. After washing the dirt off his hands and feet, he walked to her. He looked at the huge bamboo basket on the back seat and asked, Wife, what did you bring? Lu Jiyu untied the bamboo basket and said, I just harvested some vegetables from our garden and wanted you to try. Li Chenmo glanced at the bamboo basket and his eyes lit up. This is his favorite lettuce. He thought he would never taste it again. Unexpectedly, his wife planted it herself. Because he planned to eat lettuce wraps for lunch today, Lu Jiyu grilled some pork belly, sausage, and beef. She cut it into smaller pieces so they would eat it easier. Besides that, she prepares corn soup and steamed rice. Since the last quarrel between Lu Jiyu and Li Chenmo, the villagers no longer dare to poke their noses in their affairs. Not because they're afraid of her, but because they can't take responsibility if she faints from rage. After all, everyone knew that she was born frail and sickly, and they also knew how much the Lu family loved her. If something happens to her because of them, the Lu family will fight them to the death. Not to mention others, Wang Muxiao alone is already difficult to deal with. She is known for being unreasonable and petty. She will hold grudges for a long time, and is willing to go to great lengths to torture those who offended her. So even if Lu Jiyu and Li Chenmo's lunch was luxurious, no one knows about it. They only saw Li Chenmo eating raw vegetables, not even a whole grain steamed bun. While the two were enjoying lunch, the villagers were talking about them while eating. A young girl looked at them with jealousy and said sourly, If it were me, I wouldn't let my husband eat only raw vegetables. After a busy day, she didn't even give him a whole grain steamed bun. The other girl nodded and said, I don't know what's good about her that Brother Li dotes on her so much. She is too lazy to even cook. Compared with her, we are several times better than her. Hearing their words, a widow licked her lips as she looked at Li Chenmo and said ambiguously, Maybe she is good in bed. As long as he is satisfied in bed, he won't care so much about other things. The unmarried girls' faces turned red when they heard the widow's words, but they couldn't help but look at Li Chenmo's figure and think, it must be very comfortable to be held by him, right? While the women were fantasizing about Li Chenmo, the men sneered, and one of them said, No matter how good a woman is in bed, if she looks like you, he won't be able to get excited. The widow was angered by his words and asked, Hey, what do you mean? Do you mean I'm ugly? The man looked at her and asked, What, do you think you are good looking? Look at your bloated body and yellow face. Unless that person is blind, no one is willing to touch you. You who said no one wants to touch me, the widow said, pointing to the man's nose. As soon as the words left her mouth, she came back to her senses. She almost blurted out the names of the men she had affairs with. If she really spoke out, let alone being reported, she might be beaten to death by the wives of those men. Although everyone doesn't mind chatting about some ambiguous topics, this is different from intimacy in public, especially an extramarital affair. At the end of the day, chatting is just a harmless conversation, while public intimacy or extramarital affairs are crimes. Thinking of the reason, the widow glared angrily in Lu Jiyu's direction. She is good-looking only because she is young, but men like women who are experienced in bed. With her timid and dull personality, Li Chenmo would soon find her boring. Then she would have a chance to taste his body. She was confident that she could seduce him into sleeping with her. After all, she has slept with most of the men in Zai village. Thinking of this, she felt better and said to the man, You are such an ugly man, I won't be bothered to talk with you. This man knew about her relationships with those married men because he had caught her in the act. so he never had a good impression of her. If it weren't for the fact that it was his own brother who was being caught with her at that time, he would have reported her to the authorities. After hearing what she said, the man laughed and said, "How dare a cheap woman like you have a face to act so arrogantly? It's really ridiculous." After hearing his words, everyone's eyes changed when they looked at the widow. There must be a reason why he called her a cheap woman. The women looked at her unkindly, while the men looked at her knowingly. Li Chenmo and Lu Jiyu didn't know that they had caused a quarrel among the villagers, so they finished their lunch leisurely. After lunch, Li Chenmo closed his eyes and took a nap, while Lu Jiyu sat next to him, looking at the vast farmland. Looking at the farmland, Lu Jiyu recalled that in 1974, Huaxia experienced widespread civil unrest, known as the Second Cultural Revolution. It was not until August 1977 that the Cultural Revolution officially ended, but in fact it was all over with the death of the leader and the purge of the Gang of Four in the fall of 1976. Since then, nearly 3 million party members and countless wrongfully purged citizens have been reinstated. The college entrance examination will be reopened only after recovery. Thinking of this, she remembered that she hadn't seen the wicked people for a long time. Although she was sure that her sister-in-law Chen Anwen would occasionally send them meals, she still wanted to see them. While her intention is to help them, part of it is to make connections. Hello.